All right, y'all, what's going on? Oh, hold on a second. Oh, that shouldn't be doing that. Oh no, I'm speech jamming myself. What is that? The stream is playing somewhere else. Oh, there we go. I found it. I was like, I'm speech jamming myself right now. Where is the extra sound coming from? All right, we here. We live. Let me make one more adjustment right quick. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. All right. I don't see y'all comments popping in yet. I'm not sure if that's an issue going on with StreamYard or not. So y'all gonna have to sound off. You're gonna have to sound off for me. All right. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. There we go. What's going on, Ms. Robin Edwards? We got Agnes. What's going on? Good to see you in the chat. There we go. I'm like, where y'all at? So we see so much quietness going on over there. There we go. I look real close too. I feel like I feel like the camera's all up in my face right now. Unusually so. I'm like, you know, I like to be a little centered. I don't like to be too close, so that's a little weird. All right. I got my tea with me. I'm going into my second week. Ooh, tighten that up. All right, going into my second week of my 36-hour alternate day fasting strategy. This is week number 2. Week number 1 was successfully completed with dramatic results. So we're going to see how it goes week 2. I'm pretty excited. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch on today on tonight's stream. I want to talk about the most dangerous sugar in the world, according to the lovely Dr. Boz. I believe that's what her name is. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at that. And then on a more serious note, we're going to talk about some hormonal stuff, right? How your hormones affect everything from your blood flow, blood pressure, your mood, muscle building, all that. And, you know, talking about things more from the fitness aspect. But what's interesting, too, that I want to touch more on fitness is if you focus on fitness, everything else in your health improves downstream from that. But the thing is that the way that we frame and view fitness is a little warped, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to make it a point to talk a bit more about fitness, putting the focus on fitness, right? Fitness is not like a recreational hobby that you engage in. It's not really what it is. It could be, but it's not really what it should be, right? So talking a little bit more about that. And in particular, I'm going to talk more about testosterone. And testosterone is important both to men and women. Okay? Because testosterone, basically, if you're a woman, you produce testosterone as well. Right? And you get to see how much testosterone you produce if your estrogen falls low enough. Right? You start getting you start getting a little 4 o'clock shadow. You start getting little chin hairs, right? You start growing a beard like me. Real late in the game. Cali girl, what's going on? Good to see you. All right. Hopefully my OBS is acting right today. But I wanted to touch on this. Let me see if this is. Let me see if y'all can. I'm gonna have to bear with me. I'm gonna have to test something out with y'all right quick. And then of course we're gonna do call in. We're gonna do call, and I'm gonna answer some of y'all questions too. Because I know y'all got questions. I want to have some answers. So we're gonna talk about that. All right. But let me do this right quick. Because you know OBS still be a little buggy. So I just wanna make sure that things are operating correctly. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Hold on. All right, so let's get to this interesting video that I found. This is very interesting.
The deadliest sugar in the world is not what you think. In fact, scientists used to believe it was the healthiest sugar on Earth. They were dead wrong. They thought because this sugar carried a lower glycemic index than table.
I'm gonna pause right quick. Can y'all hear that? Can y'all hear the video that I'm playing clearly? Yeah, put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear the video clearly. I'm gonna start it over. Let me know if y'all can hear that clearly.
The deadliest sugar in the world is not what you think.
All right, can y'all hear that clearly? Yeah, okay, we got a yes in the chat. We got yeses. All right, so my OBS is working correctly. I've configured things successfully. There we go. All right, so let's take it from the top. And let me know if it's too loud, if anything's too loud or not. All right, let me know about that. So I don't want to be blowing y'all eardrums out. All right, so let's go ahead and do it.
The deadliest sugar in the world is not what you think. In fact, scientists used to believe it was the healthiest sugar on Earth. They were dead wrong. They thought because this sugar carried a lower glycemic index than table sugar, that it was a healthy alternate for diabetics. It wasn't until years later that they realized how dangerous fructose really is. Fructose is uniquely dangerous because it triggers the fat switch. Our ancient ancestors survived because of the fat switch by eating fruit and berries to fatten them up before winter. But now, in our age of abundance, fructose from any source is the leading cause for obesity, insulin resistance, and there's growing evidence that it's the leading cause for Alzheimer's. So if you were told that raw honey or fruit were superfoods, I'm sorry, you were lied to. They're filled with the deadliest sugar in the world, fructose. The deadliest sugar.
All right. So I saw this video, right? And I was like, that's astonishing, right? It's a very bold claim, very bold stuff. So she was getting cooked in her comments. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up to it in her YouTube comments. And yeah, I was like, oh, you better take this down. She was getting cooked in her comments real bad. So basically she referred to this thing called the fat switch. So that's not a real thing. There's no such thing as the fat switch, right? Usually if you're going to talk about like a fat switch in scientific terms, they would be like a hormone that you're referring to, right? But there's no such thing as the fat switch hormone, right? As a matter of fact, in order to create some type of hormonal shift to really gain weight at a rapid rate, it's not just like one switch and it just changes everything. It's a combination of a variety of different things. So that's a red flag there. It's not like, oh, you just eat this one food, like, you know, berries, and then there's a switch, and then you just start just gaining crazy weight. That's not that's not really how that works, right? So, there was a few mistakes that were made in that video. So that was the one, the fat switch thing. That's not a real thing. The most dangerous sugar in the world, fructose. Now, can it be extremely dangerous? Yes. But it depends on the source. So one big mistake that she made was she said, regardless of the source, now you're having a problem, right? Because it's going to be a very tough sell. And you can do this, like, she has like a keto diet kind of channel. So that message would play better with people who are like big carnivore people, where they think like vegetables are trying to kill you and all types of stuff. But people who like more so on the keto side, they still eat vegetables and, you know, they still eat low glycemic foods and things like that. So when you say, oh, our ancestors, ate fruits, and she put up a picture of like berries and cantaloupe, that's a mistake too, because when you say our ancestors, I don't know who you're talking about, right? This is a more so northern looking European woman. I am pretty much the opposite of that, right? I have a sneaking suspicion that her ancestors weren't over there in Europe getting fat on cantaloupe before the winter. I have a sneaking suspicion that her ancestors were not doing that, right? So there's no historical evidence for that. I don't know why she'd say that or choose to put up a picture of cantaloupe. I don't know. I don't know why she thought that would fly. So yeah, the biggest mistake, this was a few mistakes, but a big mistake is saying regardless of the source. Because now if you're going to say fructose regardless of the source, now you're going to have to provide evidence that shows that, hey, blueberries make you fat or they make you gain weight. Strawberries make you gain weight. Grapes make you gain weight. Watermelon makes you gain weight. You're going to have to make that argument. And the problem you run into is like you look at these foods, and these foods are like 90% water. So you mean to tell me that in the U.S., where we have an obesity epidemic, you're going to tell me that the primary driver of that obesity epidemic is like berries and like watermelon and cantaloupe and stuff? Okay, if you're going to say that, well, do you have, like, let's say food studies, or have you been tracking obese people's dietary patterns where, like, fruit is a primary source of their energy source when it comes to food? Need some kind of evidence to support that. So what kind of amused me a little bit is she's sitting in like an office. She's got on a lab coat, right? So the presentation stylistically, it's like, oh, this is a serious lady because she's a doctor, and we know because she has DR at the front of her name, and she's wearing a lab coat. She's sitting in an office, so you better take her seriously. She knows what she's talking about, right? And you better be careful when it comes to those blueberries, because they're going to turn on the fat switch, and then you're going to blow up, right? It's not the Five Guys burgers and fries. It's not the steak, eggs, butter. It's not any of that. It's not the dairy. It's not any of the high-fat food. It's the berries and the cantaloupe that the cavemen were eating in Europe, apparently, right? So I don't really do these kind of reaction videos very often, and I kind of feel like I should, because the claims, I don't really look for them, right? But that one stumbled across me, and it shocked me, because I'm like, this is very extreme. And this isn't like some gym bro who was like, yo, dude, bro, berries make you fat. It wasn't like that. It was like the whole lab coat and all of this type of stuff, right? And I was like, oh, that's horrifying. Because, like, the implication is, even with several years of conventional education followed with a degree in accreditations, your information should be a bit more refined than that. But in this day and age, apparently not, right? Which is deeply alarming to me. So I figured I'd share that with y'all to let y'all know. And the reason why, in particular, from time to time I show these kinds of things is because I just talked to somebody earlier today. I have consultation calls with people throughout the week. And people will talk to me, and they'll be like, how come what I'm hearing from you is so much different than what I'm hearing from my doctors? And I'm like, well, to be honest with you, I wish I knew. And that, people don't understand how terrifying that is. Because you go to your doctor, and your doctor is supposed to be like, okay, well, they've read the scientific data, the studies, and they can explain to you mechanistically how certain things work in your body. And they're not doing that. And it's horrifying, right? So if you're learning all these new things from a guy on YouTube who is not wearing a lab coat, well, where's the lab coats confirming this information? Well, the lab coats are confirming the information in peer-reviewed medical data, but they're not on YouTube. So the ones who are actually publishing the studies, running the studies, putting together the research teams, organizing the data, they're not on YouTube because they're too busy running the studies, right? And those people don't really want to record videos or get on camera, and they don't have the time to do so, right? So like the real eggheads of our society, nobody knows their names. Their names are like buried in the citations in the bottom of a study or whatever the case is. They don't really have YouTube channels where they have millions of followers. So we don't really hear from those people, unfortunately, right? So you have to dig. So I had a consultation call just recently. Somebody came across one of my videos of a podcast interview that I did on a channel with Harold LaFall, great guy, does the Good Living podcast, right? Big into juicing and all that kind of stuff. And we were talking about fasting on his channel. And I explained like how fasting works, what the benefits are and why and all of that, and answering a variety of different questions and things like that. So she saw the video, she booked a call with me. However, we didn't get into diet. So there was a bit of an underestimation of what her issues were. So when she got on the call with me, it was very shocking because she didn't really look at my content beforehand. And so she just saw the fasting aspect. And so the assumption is, well, the fasting will be able to like improve my health conditions and I'll be able to lose weight and things like that and get off certain medications if I engage in the fasting. Fasting is very beneficial, but it's not a magic bullet. I personally don't believe in magic bullets. I think that things are circumstantial and very nuanced, right? So you can have a thing that is very good and produces very beneficial results, but it depends on how you apply it and when you apply it and how long, all right? So there really are no magic bullets because everything's a moving target. And the thing is that the more you do something, the less of a benefit it becomes, right? You get diminishing returns. So the more you do something, the less effective it gets because your body adapts to it, right? So, you know, we went into, I'm taking a medication. It's a GLP-1 medication, for example, Ozempic, right? So I had to explain what Ozempic is and how it works. Ozempic basically is like mostly it's an appetite suppressant, but what it does is it ramps up glucagon release from your pancreas. That glucagon increases lipolysis. It kicks on your adrenal glands in order to assist in increasing that lipolysis. Lipolysis increases fat oxidation. So the actual clusters of fat get broken down into simpler forms and converted into glucose in order to be used for energy, right? So as that glucagon increases, your insulin, at least it's supposed to come down, right? So you accelerate the lipolysis, it shuts off your appetite because you have an abundance of new glucose because the fat has been converted into glucose and sent to your cells to be used for energy. And so rinse and repeat at a high level, that fat converts into glucose at a faster rate and the glucose gets used and it drives down the insulin, etc. So when you do this over time, this GLP-1, it reduces your appetite. Leptin increases, ghrelin decreases. So you eat less. So now you have higher lipolysis, more fat metabolism, and your food cravings and your appetite pretty much dissipate. This is a recipe for weight loss. That's what's supposed to happen. However, when you're on something like Ozempic, the longer you take it, the more diminishing returns you get. So you get like a lot of upfront weight loss, and then it plateaus, and then you get no weight loss, and it flatlines, and then the side effects start to kick in. Right? The gas, the bloating, the indigestion, the leaky gut, things like this, right? Low energy, no appetite. So that your appetite is just like permanently shut off. Because you've driven your insulin down so low and your glucagon has been elevated for such a prolonged period of time, you don't have an appetite. And so what happens is eventually your stomach acids get depleted because as leptin goes up and that GLP-1 is always really elevated, your stomach acid decreases because your gut is not primed for digestion. You don't eat that much. And so when you don't eat that much, you eat less and less and less, your body stops producing the digestive enzymes and the stomach acids over time. So that when you do start eating again, food doesn't really break down enough in your stomach. This can open you up to candida, fungal infections, bacterial overgrowth, etc. Because you don't have enough stomach acid to be able to break that stuff down. So things can sit in your stomach for way too long and go through a bit of a fermentation process with the help of, the fungus and bacteria and things like this, right? So there's all of this nastiness that happens, but people don't realize that. Everything I just told you, that's not really just explained to people before they get on an Ozempic. The mechanisms that people go through with that, it's not explained. So people find themselves, and this is very often, where people are like, hey, I'm doing Ozempic again. I was on it. I lost a lot of weight the first time. I got off of it. I gained the weight back. I went back on it. It's controlling my blood sugar, but I'm not losing any weight. I don't really have an appetite. I don't eat that much, but I'm not losing any weight. It's like, well, you're not losing any weight because it works. It's like an antibiotic. It'll work really well the first time, but the second time don't really work that well. It's like this shot, you fire it once and that's it, right? You've done shot your load. That's it. You got to move on to something else. You can't just keep doing it because of the diminishing returns. And the more aggressive something is the first time you do it, that when you do it the second time, the results are very mild. Right? So the more aggressive something is up front, the less effective it is the second time you do it. Right? The only option you really have left at that point is you really have to train your metabolism through natural means, eating herbs and forms of fasting, right, when it's appropriate. So the big misconception that I had to explain earlier was you have insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is a natural adaptation to a certain type of eating. So is insulin sensitivity. We all fall somewhere on the spectrum with insulin sensitivity, right? When you're insulin sensitivity, when you eat carbohydrates and things like that, your body breaks it down. The glucose goes to your cells pretty seamlessly. So your blood sugar maintains a healthy level. However, if you start cutting your carbohydrate intake and you're getting less glucose in, and then you're increasing your fats by proxy, well then if you do that for long enough, you become more insulin resistant over time, right? This does depend on the fat source though. So for example, there's a very big difference between eating olives and olive oil. So eating olives won't make you insulin resistant, but olive oil will. Because the oil is basically just pure fat without the B vitamins, the vitamin E, the vitamin K, the magnesium, the manganese, and things like this. It's just pure fat. So now you have a disproportionate amount of fat to the vitamin and mineral content. The vitamin and mineral content is what's needed in order for your mitochondrial function to be efficient enough to be able to oxidize the fat and break that down and convert it into glucose and be able to have that glucose being taken up into the cells and used for energy. Right? So the B vitamins need to be on par with your food intake. This is why processed foods are so problematic. Processed foods, basically, they just give you an abundance of glucose and fat and things like that, but without the vitamin and mineral content. That's the biggest problem with it. It's this denaturing, so that it goes from being a food to being a food-like product, right? So the more of an intense industrialized process you put a food through, it loses its vitamin and mineral content. That's the biggest problem with processed foods. It's the loss of nutrients as a result. With a raw diet, one of the benefits of a raw diet is the fact that it fixes that problem. Because with a raw diet, you can't consume and absorb too much glucose, fat, and protein disproportionate to the vitamin and mineral content. With a raw diet, if anything, it's the opposite. You absorb a lot of the vitamin and mineral content, probably more so than, like, for example, the fat content. So nutrient absorption is more tightly regulated when your food sources are raw. right? Of course, certain foods you shouldn't eat raw because your gut can't really metabolize them very well. So there's certain foods that work very well on a raw diet and others not so much. So it really depends. So like generally speaking, when it comes to like leafy greens, arugula, watercress, spring mix, baby butter lettuce, right? Things like this. Well, that's better to eat raw than like, let's say, cauliflower or cabbage or broccoli, for example. You can eat those more cruciferous, rough greens raw, but depending on the condition of your gut, you may not really absorb the nutrients that you need from it entirely. So that digestive process may be a little brutal, right? Same thing with potatoes, right? However, and I think, yeah, Catherine, if you're in here, you put me onto raw potatoes, where basically, if you shred them thin enough, actually, they can be, that's a way of breaking down the cell wall ahead of time, which makes the digestive process a bit easier as far as potatoes. So that's interesting. I don't know much about it. Sounds like it would work, right? But I haven't really gotten into eating raw sweet potato yet. I don't know if I would eat raw sweet potato, quite honestly. It'd probably make more sense for me to just cook it because it's a very starchy food. Generally speaking, starchy foods are like unripe foods. So it's harder for the gut to really digest starches raw because those starches need to be broken down into simpler forms of glucose. The cell wall needs to be broken down. So starches, you usually cook them for that reason, or you should at least soak them, right? So there's like soaking and steaming and things like that. And the only purpose for doing things like that when it comes to starchy foods is to break down the cell wall to make it easier for your gut to pull the nutrients from them. That's like the big thing. With fruits, fruits usually are ripe. Your cooked foods are like unripe foods, right? Like starchy foods, like unripe foods. A great example of this would be like a banana, right? So when a banana is not ripe, that's when its starch content is the highest. The more ripe a banana comes, the more the starch content of the banana decreases. So the starch breaks down into simpler forms of glucose. And it becomes easier for your gut to consume. This is the reason why like starchy foods are hard. They're like inedible because they're hard, right? The softness is the ripening, where it becomes edible over time, right? This is even the case in lentils. So for example, dry lentils, unripe lentils, they're hard. You can crack your teeth chewing into them. If you sprout them, basically you soak them for a little bit and you let them sprout, they become edible without even cooking them. You could just chew them, it's like chewing spinach. It's probably easier to chew than spinach, right? Like sprouted lentils are actually soft and really easy to eat. They're a little crunchy, they got a little crunch to them, but they're really easy to eat, right? So that's the difference. Basically, when you sprout them, they become ripe. And they go from being this little rock-hard seed to then sprouting and becoming more of like a vegetable, right? Or a sprout, basically. So little details like that, right? So when it comes to raw vegan eating, there are some bit of nuances with that. But anyways, so getting back into the insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance thing, the more of your diet is carbohydrates, the more insulin sensitive you become. As you shrink your dietary fat intake and you shrink your protein intake and you increase your carbohydrate intake, you become way more insulin sensitive. So this is like an ideal approach to take for diabetics, where you actually reduce your your fat and protein intake, you increase your carbohydrate intake upwards of 65, 70, even 80% of your macros. So you can do an 80-10-10 or somewhere close to it. I don't exactly advocate for like an 80-10-10. I like a little bit more of a balance. So whereas, your dietary carbs is somewhere around 65%, fats are around 15, and then protein is in between 15, maybe 16%. Usually averages around 12%. That's like a good balance that I've found that works very well for people who are diabetics. And then also, and the reason why is because insulin resistance essentially is a traffic jam, right? Insulin resistance is like what happens when you just haven't trained your metabolism to be primed to consume, break down carbohydrates and use that for energy. It's kind of like if you haven't strength trained in a long time, your body becomes deconditioned to lift heavy weights. So if you're going to the gym and you're lifting heavy weights every day, Your warm up time is going to be less, and you're going to be stronger day by day. But if you take a month off and then you go back to that type of training, it'll be real hard on you. Everything is going to feel way heavier than it did before. And that's because your body deprioritizes the adaptation that you made previously. It's a dosage thing. Your body is not going to maintain an adaptation that you're no longer utilizing. That neural pathway closes up. Right? Insulin sensitivity is like an adaptation. It's like a skill. Insulin resistance, you don't want to be really insulin sensitive on a fatty, protein-rich diet. Right? Because it picks up your appetite and then you just end up eating too much. Right? So you'll have raw vegans and they'll have way more of an appetite. Especially like athletic raw vegans. They just eat crazy amounts of food and just like really active with a crazy caloric burn where you're just like, you're a furnace. Right? Thermogenesis is through the roof. Even like for me, when I have like a really high carbohydrate diet and I'm eating every day and I'm eating a lot, my caloric burn will gradually increase more and more and more every day. And the more raw that I eat and the more carbohydrate dominant my diet becomes, my caloric burn increases. And so like the glucose uptake and whatnot is just flowing. And it's just all of this energy that you have all the time. Right? But you end up eating more frequently. And so a lot of people, they go on a fruitarian diet and they're like, man, I'm hungry all the time. And it's like, well, yeah, you're probably eating like small amounts at a time. Like, for example, if I'm on a fully raw diet and I eat 2 bananas, it's just going to make me hungry. Right? Then my body will just take that 2 bananas and just suck that right up and just send that straight to like muscle tissue and whatnot. And then boom, it's like I ain't even eat anything. So you can eat way more frequently. Right? Whereas if you cut your carbohydrates, your leptin increases and ghrelin decreases. So having like a high-fat, high-protein diet in and of itself acts as an appetite suppressant. The reason why is because when you eat fat, that increases your glucagon naturally. And when you eat protein, that increases your glucagon naturally. So the same way, if you take Ozempic or GLP-1 medication, that increases glucagon in a similar way that fat and protein does. So when people cut all their carbohydrates, they're just having fats and proteins and whatnot. They don't really have much of an appetite. So you'll hear people like, man, I started eating carnivore or I started eating keto and all of my food cravings went away. It's not that your food cravings went away. It's your appetite shut off because glucagon is real high. The problem with the glucagon is that when your glucagon is really elevated, when it's like that over a very prolonged period of time, the heart palpitations start setting in. And then this has like a diuretic effect. Because the thing is, when your adrenal glands are pumping real hard, and that glucagon is causing your kidneys to go to tap on and filter out more because of the adrenal glands, because your adrenal glands is like a dimmer switch for your kidneys. So when your adrenal glands kick on and start releasing more cortisol, start releasing more adrenaline, start releasing more norepinephrine and all of that, those catecholamines, which are those stress hormones from your kidneys, that increases kidney output and has a diuretic effect. So you start urinating more, you start losing more water. Right? So people are like, oh, I dropped a lot of water weight. It's like, well, it's a form of dehydration. So, you know, people say, well, you got to make sure you drink a gallon of water a day. Well, it's really important to drink water to keep hydrated. The problem is you need the electrolytes with the water. You cut your carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is where you get most of your electrolytes. So the more of your carbohydrates you cut, the less electrolytes you're getting in return. So that contributes to high blood pressure, dehydration, worsening insulin resistance, fatty liver, etc. And so all of this is building up. And the longer you cut your carbs and the more you take something like Ozempic, the worse that situation gets. Your blood pressure gets higher, the heart palpitations get worse, your sleep quality diminishes, you wake up too early, you get the restlessness at night, the heart palpitations at night, the frequent nighttime urination, and all of this, right? And the interesting thing is if that goes long enough, your blood sugar numbers start increasing. And so you're like, I'm not doing anything. I didn't start eating more carbs. Why is my blood sugar running up? It was doing good before. Now it's just running up. It's the stress. As your body takes on more stress and loses more electrolytes, that causes more vascular constriction. Your adrenal glands kick up even more. The lipolysis increases, but the thing is that your mitochondria don't function that well because of the electrolyte deficiency. Electrolyte deficiency destroys your mitochondrial function. And so when you're stockpiling protein and fat on top of that, and that increases your uric acid, and when you increase your uric acid, you need to increase urea. Basically, you need to increase urine in order to filter the uric acid out. But less urea means less uric acid gets released from your body. So then the joint pain starts setting in, your joints start feeling stiffer and achier than normal. Then you can get things like neuropathy, edema, all this type of stuff. It's this cascading effect. This stuff just starts getting worse. Unfortunately, people's doctors don't explain this. So it's, hey, take the Ozempic. And here, take this hydrochlorothiazide. And hey, take this amlodipine. It's like, dude, you're going to kill them. Don't do that. You're giving them diuretics. You're giving them Ozempic. You're giving them all these things. You're just ramping the crap out of their adrenal glands. They're not going to be able to sleep at night. There has to be a counterbalance. You can't just be glucagon, 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 fat metabolism. You can't do, there's a cost to that. You can't lean so far into one strategy like that without having a counterbalance. So you engage in a strategy for a set amount of time and pull back. You got to change. You got to get off. You can't just run a strategy just straight into the end zone nonstop. You can't do that. It doesn't work that way. Weight loss is a stressor. Fat metabolism is a stressor. Glucose deprivation is a stressor. And if you accumulate enough stress, you won't sleep at night. And if you don't sleep at night, you could just straight up just not be able to gain any muscle mass. And fat mass and lean mass is a zero-sum game. The more muscle you lose, the more fat you gain. The more fat you lose, the more muscle mass you have the potential to gain. I say potential because your body can just shrink. It's a zero-sum game. It's kind of like with elderly people. Elderly people have something on average called sarcopenia. As you get older, you get like into your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you lose like 1% of your muscle mass per year on average, right? For some people, it can be a lot higher. So you're basically just hemorrhaging muscle mass over time. As you start losing that muscle mass over time, those empty spaces get filled by fat. Right? So you'll see like in elderly people, the cholesterol will increase. So you get an increase in cholesterol. You get an increase in stored fat as you get this decrease in muscle mass, and then a decrease in bone density and a decrease in bone marrow, etc. It's a zero-sum thing. This is why I stress to older people, hey, you really got to put a focus on building muscle mass, right? But don't do this thing and be like, well, just because I have more energy, I'm just going to use it to do all kind of crazy cardio and long workouts. Don't do that because that is too much of a stressor. It makes it harder for you to build the muscle mass. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make when it comes to trying to build muscle, they do too much work. They're training too much. In order to build muscle, you have to create a training stimulus and then back off. You don't create the training stimulus and then you just keep intensifying it over and over and over and over and over again, set after set after set. Because you create resistance when you do that. It's too much. It's like a pain response, right? The more pain you feel, as it increases, you develop a resistance to it. Those pain receptors shut off. Right? And you can see like a muscle, you can train a muscle and you'll feel the burn and then it'll just stop firing. Because that's it. It just shuts off. The nerves, everything. That whole infrastructure, it don't even produce contractions anymore. It just shuts off. And you don't want to get to that point because if you get to that point, it's really difficult to recover and build muscle at that point. Because you did so much damage and destruction, not to the skeletal muscle, but also the nerves themselves. that your body has to go into all of this process of recovery just to return to baseline, let alone build new muscle. It don't really take that much to build muscle. The problem is people are impatient. So people do all of this extreme stuff to make the process work faster. It doesn't work like that. You're on a time constraint. Right? So there's all these different details that that doctors should explain to people, but maybe they don't have enough time. They see too many people. They're tired. They don't get enough sleep. It's patient after patient. It's a lot of different things. But the fact of the matter is that people go into their doctor's office. They're like, hey, I have high blood pressure. I have like a degree of kidney disease. I've got insulin pre-diabetic or full-blown diabetic, and I got to lose 100 pounds. And the doctor is just like, you got to take this medication for the blood pressure. You got to take this medication for the blood sugar. And you just got to eat a little bit better, and you got to do more consistent cardio to exercise so you can lose the weight. They're trained in like Western medicine, surgeries, medications, and running tests to do blood tests and things like this. Other than that, your doctor's not going to put together a diet plan for you. So if you ask your doctor, hey, what should my macros be? You think they're going to tell you, all right, you do X amount of grams per kilogram of lean mass. That's your total body weight minus your body fat percentage. And it should be grams to kilograms and this percentage. You think most doctors don't know how to put together, because you need more of like a sports performance background to be able to put together something like that. Most nutritionists don't even do that. That's more of a sports nutrition thing, like a precision nutrition thing. Right? Which requires some math. The cultural limitations of our healthcare system, they just don't do that. Not to mention, you got like doctors, like they don't believe that you're going to do what it takes to really improve in your condition. They don't believe in you in the way that you may believe in yourself. And they don't know you. So there's not a whole lot of an investment. This is another problem. You're dealing with so many people. They don't know you. And they know, they're like, yo, they know you don't even want to be there. And they also know that they get that big ass medical bill every time they go to see you, and they don't want to be doing that because it's expensive. So there's all these different problems that you run into with our healthcare system. So like there's this big gap between like fitness and building muscle and all of that, and then just like being healthy. And people view them as two separate things, and they're not. You're either fit or you're unhealthy. That's really what it is. Right? You're either fit or unhealthy. That's really what it is, right? But and then when it comes to like, it's a spectrum: fit, unhealthy. But you can also be like fit in some ways. Where you have a lot of muscle doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy. You're healthier than a person that doesn't have a lot of muscle, but not really. So you can have like a healthy cardiovascular system. You can have a healthy metabolism. Maybe. So like, for example, with a lot of like competitive bodybuilders, especially women, develop like hormonal problems. So like you can compete throughout your early 20s and whatnot, and then once you get into like your late 20s and then you hit 30, you start having hormonal issues. Because in order to get like super lean, you had to like, you barely eat. You're like, hey, I want to keep my protein up, and I want to keep my carbs down, or I want to keep my protein up and I want to keep my fats down and my carbs up. So you can have like a fully grown woman eating like 1,200 calories a day, and she's trying to build all kind of muscle and everything and be as lean as possible with like 1,200 calories a day. And her BMR is like 1,400 or something like this. Right? So like you're not even eating enough to sustain your BMR, and then you're doing cardio on top of that, and then you're trying to build muscle. You can get away with doing that in your early 20s, mid 20s and whatnot, but as you get older, it becomes harder to do that because of the diminishing returns. That strategy works early on, but it's like the Ozempic thing. You fire that shot one time, but every time you do it, you get diminishing returns. It's not as effective as it was before. And it becomes this weird thing of like, oh, I started missing a menstrual cycle, and that's when I realized I had to take a break. I wasn't sleeping. I was missing my menstrual cycle, or it was too light, or it was too short, it was coming late. And that's like one of those telltale signs. Like for women, your menstrual cycle tells you a lot about your health. For men, your erectile quality. So like a lack of libido, no morning wood, weak erections, these are bad signs. That means like you're not doing stress management correctly. Like you got hormonal problems, right? Look at y'all leaving a whole bunch of questions in the comments here. Hold on a second. And we got to do call in. I'm over here blabbing. What's this here? A finger bike mic. What's a finger bike? I add Brazil cashews and walnuts. Is this fine with a fruitarian lifestyle? Yeah, absolutely. Fruits, nuts, leafy greens. I got to talk to y'all too about how to like protein intake, because we got to do some math so I can show y'all just how much protein is needed to build muscle mass. Ella, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Hey y'all, I didn't get that alert, so I'm late. What'd I miss? Oh, people not getting the alert. They're not getting them YouTube alerts. Matter of fact, put a W in the chat if y'all got the email. If y'all on my email list and y'all got the email notification that I was going live tonight. Let's see. Doctors can get degrees with less than 100 hours of their degrees dedicated to nutrition information. This is true. Greetings and shalom, man of Yah. What's going on? Good to see you in here. What are your thoughts on walking with weighted vest on fasting days? Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's a really good way to drop body fat. I'll tell you that. But don't overdo it though, because you'll burn yourself out on your fasting days. It'll make the following day a little rough. So it depends on like when you do a fasting day. The 24-hour fast and the 36-hour fast are very different. 36-hour fast is a beast because you go to sleep like in a fasted state, meaning you don't eat before bed. So you gotta manage your stress well on your 36-hour fast. Don't run yourself hard during a 36-hour fast, because when it's time to go to bed at night, it's gonna suck. You end up waking up way too early and all type of stuff. What is your take on sauna usages? Sauna's great. You know. It's a great way to relax. It's a good way to decompress. Good way to detoxify your body through your epidermis. So yeah, I mean, there's a variety of different. I like saunas. I mean, don't be in there too long because you end up doing too much. Mess around and pass out in there. Don't do all of that. Oh, you got the email, just not the app alert. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I put it in the app. So I'm kind of curious to see who else in there in Discord got the notification. Why do you believe doctors are so against suggesting eating whole food plant-based diet to reverse most chronic illnesses? Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird, right? I mean, I don't know. Because the thing is that it's so popular and it's such a big part of like the discourse in the medical community. So I don't really know why it's not recommended more often. I don't know. It's like, I mean, I guess like it's just a cultural thing or something like that. I don't know. Because human beings aren't really supposed to be eating meat in the first place. Had a doctor insist genetics play a major role in... I mean, yeah, genetics play a role in everybody. When you're like, oh, is genetics play a major role? So, well, genetics play a role in every aspect of your life. That's not a meaningful statement, right? I've been sprouting flax seed and chia seeds to get protein. I've been sprouting them. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Why do doctors not come out for medicine? Lack of knowledge, but mainly they know most patients will not put the energy into making the long-term changes. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you can have like doctors, they just don't believe you're gonna do it. Role in chronic diseases. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things, right? There's a big gap between the medical community and like us as a collective, right? Like most people don't really know. Like if you were to explain to somebody, like, hey, how does insulin resistance work in relation to, like for example, if you ask somebody to explain what causes insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity, they wouldn't know. If you had to ask somebody, hey, what is the shape of a healthy mitochondria, they would know. Yeah, a lot of people don't even know what mitochondria even is. If I say, name 3 hormones that your pancreas secretes. People could name insulin. I don't know about like another, like 2 others, right? And look, it's understandable. Like why would we be getting educated in these things? Sure, I could say you should, but like that's just not really how our society's structured, right? Just like most people don't really know how to like, fix an engine or whatever the case is. That's why you have mechanics. So I think like if you have like a big disconnect and like, it would be nice to have more doctors and nutritionists and things in our families that really help the family. That'd be nice. Or in our society, like we have a tight knit community and you have like your local doctor and your local doctor talks to everybody in the community about their health and all of this. Or the local nutritionist or, your local farmers share with you how they grow the crops and you can come onto the land and they explain to you what they use and how they grow the food and all that. That'd be great. That would be a beautiful thing to see. It doesn't really particularly work like that in our society. So, I mean, there's a lot of distance. So it becomes like a very impersonal kind of thing. Like your doctor's not going to be on here live streaming talking to you. Right? So, all right. So, I was talking about fitness. Fitness is not about like how you look. It's not really what it's about. I mean, look, you can look fit and you can have like muscular fitness. You can have a low body fat percentage. That's good. But if you're like a fit person, but your joints are chronically inflamed and your joints are like a bit unhealthy, your knees hurt, your lower back, etc., well, you don't have healthy joints. If you're a man and you don't wake up with morning wood, you have weak erections, it takes you a long time to get an erection, you got low libido, you have high total testosterone and low free testosterone, your SBG is real high, you're not hormonally in shape. Right? So, when I talk about fitness, I talk about it from more of a holistic perspective. Like I want to be in shape as much as possible, but like I don't want to wreck myself in the pursuit of being in shape. Right, does that make sense? This is why like for me, I don't advocate for like caloric deficits. That's just the thing. I don't do that. It's like, hey, if you want to drop body fat, fast. So you'll have bodybuilders and they'll say to me, how do you do a 36-hour fast? Aren't you afraid of losing muscle mass? And I'm like, well, how much muscle mass am I going to lose during a fast? If I fast for 36 hours, how much muscle mass am I going to lose? Give me a number. If I do a 36-hour fast and within that 36-hour fast, I burn 3,600 calories in that fast, or I burn 3,000 calories within that 36-hour period. How much of that is going to be muscle mass? Give me a number. They'd be like, well, you would lose maybe like a pound of muscle? I would lose a pound of muscle with a 3,000 calorie burn? Are you sure? Well, maybe not. No. Oh, well, yeah, because that's not even a pound of fat, let alone a pound of muscle. 3,600 calories. 1 pound of fat is 3,600 calories. Just put that into perspective. If I do a 36-hour fast, and within that 36-hour period, I burn 3,000 calories, how much of that is going to be muscle mass? right? I've asked people this question, they can't tell me. I've never really met a person yet who's been able to tell me. So then the thing is, let's say we do this. Let's do some math. Let's do this. Isn't like 1 pound? 1 pound is like 4.5 kilos, right? Let me fact check myself right quick. Yeah, one pound is 0.45 kilos. Right? Okay. Let's do a little trivia. Who in the comments knows how, well, first of all, let me break this down. Actually, I got to start back a little bit. Just to set the context. Carbohydrates are made out of carbon, hydrogen, right? Fats, carbon, hydrogen. Protein, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. Right? That's what makes protein unique, is that nitrogen molecule, right? So you're eating protein, and the protein will break down into those simpler forms, the carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, right? You eat a certain amount of protein, and then once your body has reached its protein requirement, meaning your body's gotten all the protein it needs, it will then take any extra protein, break off the nitrogen molecule, and then flush the nitrogen molecule out of your body through your urine. Okay, this is what happens. All right. As far as skeletal muscle mass is concerned, 76% of it is water. 18% of your skeletal muscle mass is made of carbon, 16% is made of nitrogen. 16% made out of nitrogen, okay? A small, tiny amount. So when people talk about protein, they never talk about this process. It's very important to understand. It's not just protein in and of itself. Oh, the muscle is just made out of protein. No, it's not. Protein is mostly made out of water and carbon and nitrogen. Nitrogen is actually like the kind of the smallest part of it. And the carbon and the nitrogen combined together makes the protein structures. Protein breaks down into its simplest form as nitrogen. Okay? The carbon and the nitrogen and the hydrogen, they come together to make like a full package. What we call proteins, right? It's more of a complex molecular structure. So, 1 pound of muscle, which is at 0.45. So 0.45 times 0.16. The amount of nitrogen in a pound of muscle mass is 0.07 grams. 0.07 kilograms. Not 0.7 grams. 0.70 kilograms. All right. The reason why I say that is to basically give you a perspective where, like, if you wanted to build 1 pound of muscle within 30 days, you would need like 5 grams of nitrogen per day of a surplus. So you would need a 5-gram surplus of nitrogen a day for 30 days in order to build 1 pound of muscle mass. Right, is how the math breaks down. So people put this overestimation on protein consumption. Not realizing that most of the protein that you eat, it doesn't get used to make skeletal muscle. Your weight can swing pretty significantly, and the reason why is because your weight is largely a balance of water. Right? So you have your total body weight. Your total body weight minus your body fat percentage gives you your lean mass. So for example, for me, my lean mass, what is my lean mass? My lean mass is 136 pounds. Okay. So 136 pounds is my lean mass. That's my total body weight minus my body fat percentage is 136 pounds. All right. So I'm going to take the 136 pounds, I'm going to divide that by 2.2 to get kilograms. So my total lean mass is 61.8 kilograms. That's my lean mass. Half of your lean mass is skeletal muscle mass. All right, so this brings me to like 32 grams let's be more, 61.8. Let's round that up to 62. 62... And then we do times 0.5, 31, right? So I am 31 kilograms of skeletal muscle mass. On average, men on average have like around 30 kilograms of skeletal muscle mass. Women is like half that, more or less. So it's good to narrow down these numbers so that you get more of a nuanced way of thinking about nutrition in your head. Because this overemphasis on protein, if you structure your diet like that, you end up getting nutrient gaps in your diet because of this need to cram in all of this extra protein in your diet. Right? The overestimation of protein is not helpful because basically the protein just ends up getting broken down into glucose anyway. So, and I don't want to bore you too much with the math, but basically 31 kilograms, 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams, right? So if we do 31 and we multiply that by 1,000, it gives us 31,000. Okay. So if we divide 31,000 by 365, do I have that right? Yes, so that's 31,000 grams. I skipped a step. 31,000 grams. That's 31,000 grams of skeletal muscle tissue. But 16% of that actually is made up of nitrogen. Okay? I mean, that's 16%. So we do 31,000 and we multiply that by 0.16. That gives us 4,960. Right, so 4,960 grams of nitrogen, right? Now let's multiply that by, let's divide that by 365. So if we divide that by 365, that gives us 13.5. So that's 13.5 grams of nitrogen per day to maintain skeletal muscle mass. The reason why I'm illustrating that is because basically when I do alternate day fasting and I ask how much muscle mass am I going to lose in a 36-hour fast, it's virtually none. The fast isn't long enough. Caloric burn is not high enough. Right? Now, interestingly enough, your body during a fast that deep, your body goes into autophagy, and autophagy actually increases lean mass preservation and increases fat metabolism. You're likely to lose more muscle mass doing a general caloric deficit than you would with the alternate day fasting. There's scientific studies to actually demonstrate this too, the power of autophagy. It was like fasting versus a general caloric deficit, and it showed that people will actually be able to retain more muscle mass with fasting than they did with. This was like an alternate day fasting strategy study as well that showed this. It wasn't a huge gap, but it was a small difference. But I mean, you know, if you're concerned with that kind of thing, you want to see the numbers of it. So autophagy makes the difference. This is the reason why I don't really advocate for caloric deficits, because you don't really get the autophagic benefits from that. For me personally, if I do cut, I'm only going to do it once a year. If I go through a cutting phase, I'm only going to do it once a year. I'm not going to be trying to stay lean all year round. I don't have an interest in doing that. It's like extremely stressful. Generally speaking, your body wants to get into a state of comfort where it has an energy reserve. So if your body fat's like super low all the time, you don't really have that energy reserve, which is a massive stressor on your body depending on how you got there. All right. Do you have videos on strength training and muscle gain from home? Yes, I do. I got whole training plans geared towards it. Just did a 5-day water fast, was happy with the fat loss. Do you feel it's safe to do daily intermittent fasting, 16/8, and possibly 3 days fasting per month? 3 days fast per month. Yeah, like a rolling fast. If you do like, what do you mean? Like if you do like a 72-hour fast every month? Yeah, you could do it. I don't know if I would do a 32-hour. I don't know if I would do a 72-hour fast every month. It's pretty aggressive. Out of the month. It depends on how you do it. I mean, you could do it every month and be fine. I don't know if I would do that. It depends on what your current body fat percentage is, what the rest of your diet looks like, what your lifestyle looks like, that kind of thing. So it does vary. But if you do it once a month or something like that, you could do that pretty sustainable. It's like a lifestyle thing that you do. That's completely fine. Intermittent fasting, 16/8, that is actually very sustainable on a daily basis. You definitely could. That's way more sustainable. That's not aggressive at all. Can prednisone affect your digestive system? Yes. Prednisone can make you more insulin resistant. So you end up having you can actually end up gaining excess weight from prednisone, like long-term usage of prednisone. So you got to be careful about that. Yeah, steroids will make you gain weight for sure. You know what people don't talk about for muscle gain is the power of vitamin D. Vitamin D can help you to increase muscle mass gain. So if you combine like a slight surplus with increase in vitamin D, whether it be sun exposure or vitamin D supplementation, you can actually see better results of fat metabolism and muscle mass gain, better sleep quality and everything like that, just from getting more sun exposure. So we got spring and summer coming up. For some of us, it's already here. For me, unfortunately, not yet. But in the summer, take advantage, get that sun. I mean, get as much of that sun as you safely can. Keyword safely can. Don't get scorched up out there. Get cooked. Don't do all of that, right? You want to do it safely and responsibly. All right. The last thing I want to touch on is, before I get on to the call-in, is testosterone. Natural ways to increase testosterone, vitamin D is one. But you don't want to just increase total testosterone, you want to increase free testosterone. When you increase free testosterone, it's going to make it easier to build muscle, burn body fat. It's going to improve brain chemistry, this type of thing. It's all kinds of benefits to doing that. But you increase your total testosterone too much, it actually increases your risk of heart disease. For women, you have the magic of estrogen, which actually protects you from heart disease. So it's less likely that a woman is going to die of a heart attack. But as a man, it's a different story. Fun fact, women have 10% higher total body fat than men. Men have 10% higher visceral fat than women. So even though men are supposed to be much leaner than women, even if you're more leaner than women, you'll have 10% more visceral fat. And the visceral fat is the type of body fat that you have sitting directly on top of your vital organs, and that's dangerous as that builds up. That significantly increases your risk of all types of chronic illnesses and things, primarily heart disease. It's dangerous stuff, right? And so testosterone, when you increase your testosterone excessively, in particular total testosterone and even free testosterone, that increases your risk of heart attacks. So you have a lot of bodybuilders end up dying in their 40s and 50s of heart attacks out of nowhere, right? Because of pushing their testosterone levels to super physiological levels, and that increases your risk of heart disease. Also, exogenous testosterone increases insulin resistance. So when you come off of the testosterone, when you come off of the hormones, you get this vicious snapback effect where it becomes very difficult to gain muscle mass and very easy to gain body fat. So you'll see like a lot of dudes where they come off the gear, they stop training, and then they get like these dad bods out of nowhere. They lose all their muscle mass, like they atrophy, they gain a gut and all this type of stuff out of nowhere. It happens like real quick. And you're like, holy shit, how'd that happen? Normally they wouldn't be in those circumstances. It's not just because they don't train as hard or anything like that. It's that the exogenous hormones, they wreck you. Because that insulin resistance is still there. And then your body's natural ability to have free testosterone is shut off. So you end up increasing your risk of having like an enlarged prostate and higher risk of like, colon cancer, prostate cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, all this type of stuff. So having high testosterone is good up until a point, but there's a bit of nuance to it. You don't want to have like high testosterone and low free testosterone. That's bad. And when usually people have like low free testosterone and high total testosterone because they're having way too much saturated fat, protein, and heme iron. And so basically a lot of their testosterone is being bound up because their body's producing higher levels of sex-binding globulin. So you end up having like elevated liver enzymes, excessively elevated LDL cholesterol, and then you have all of this heme iron locked into your liver, gradually over time damaging your liver because iron is highly prone to oxidation. So you end up having like this low amount of free testosterone, okay? And that can have kidney health issues. It cause you to gain excess weight, high blood pressure. You get like this ballooned up prostate. Things could just go real sideways because of that, right? So there is a bit of nuance when it comes to testosterone. The goal isn't to raise testosterone as much as possible. The goal is not to lower testosterone. That's not really what the goal is. You want balance. So like when people are like, hey, what can I take for testosterone? I'm like, well, hold up. It's not that simple. You don't want to take something to increase testosterone necessarily. What you want to do is decongest your liver. And you want to have a more tightly controlled form of iron. Like heme iron will cause a lot of these issues, right? You get that real elevated SBG. It becomes a massive problem, right? So getting your iron from plant-based foods is one of those things that can really help to significantly improve your issues. So you have higher levels of iron, higher levels of copper and vitamin C, as well as chlorophyll together. So those four things together actually helps to balance out your testosterone. So you get better blood oxygen. And what happens is when you increase iron, copper, vitamin C, when you increase those things collectively, that translates into other areas of your health. So, for example, there's a thing called angiotensin, right? Angiotensin is a hormone that causes vascular constriction. You have angiotensin 1 and angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2 is the hormone that causes vascular constriction, the narrowing of your arteries, right? So when you have more iron, copper, vitamin C, and these different types of things, you get better elasticity of your vascular tissues. You get a decrease in this angiotensin. And then, of course, if you're getting more iron, copper, and chlorophyll and whatnot in your diet, you're also getting higher levels of magnesium and potassium. which keep you hydrated and cause vascular dilation and increases of nitric oxide. So you get better blood oxygen. When you sustain those conditions, you get stronger erections, you get better, higher, more balanced libido, and you get a more even distribution and higher level of free testosterone. Not excessively high, but high enough to get optimal results. As the angiotensin drops, as the nitric oxide levels increase, as you get more vascular dilation, blood oxygenation, and you get this balance of testosterone and all of that, you get better sleep quality. And as you get better sleep quality, another thing that happens is myostatins. Myostatin basically regulates muscular hypertrophy. So if you're struggling to build muscle mass, even though you're eating a lot of protein, well, you got to look at these other aspects of your life, because you could focus so much on eating more protein, and that can be causing your myostatin to increase, inhibiting your ability to gain muscle mass to any meaningful degree. So all you get is upset gut, higher blood pressure, and poor sleep quality because of this hyper focus on protein. So the nuance. So basically you get better sleep quality, you get more hydrated, you get better levels of free testosterone, you decongest your liver, the myostatin comes down, and you build muscle mass to an optimal degree. So everything reverses. All of this falls under the umbrella of stress management. So this is like another reason why I'm a big fan of like a raw diet, either high raw or like a fully raw diet. And the reason why is because you get really high levels of that copper, vitamin C, iron, magnesium, potassium. In addition to that, you get a lot of your like vitamin B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B12, these different types of things. Right? Your B12 comes from like your nutritional yeast or plant-based milks or fortified coconut yogurt, or you can take a B complex and get it that way. B12 is also, it's a postbiotic. It's made in your gut, right? So your gut makes its own methylcobalamin as well. The people who are most likely to be B12 deficient are people who have an impaired gut. They got poor gut health. All right. By the way, folks, I know I'm dropping a lot of information and knowledge on y'all. If you want to book a call with me, you can book a call with me through the link in the description, or you can become a tribe member, right? You can sign up for my 12-week mentorship. You can become a tribe community member to get the replays of all the live streams and whatnot, direct communication with me and whatnot as well. The 12-week mentorship, it comes in 3 tiers, so you can get weekly calls, you can get your own custom diet plan and training plan, with the weekly calls, my courses, and all that, right? So all of that's in the link in the description as well, or you can go to tribenoir.com or .tv, right, to get started. All right. It's a lot to talk about there. Let's get into this call-in, right? Let's see, on a high-carb diet, should I be cautious of excess sodium intake? For example, I had 412 grams of carbs today with a 3,500 sodium intake. You had 3,500... You didn't have 3,500 grams of sodium. That's not what you mean. You mean 3,500 grams of sodium? Is that what you mean? No, it had to be, no, because even that's insane. You mean milligrams. You had 3,500 milligrams of sodium. Is that what you mean? You said 3,500. I imagine that means milligrams of sodium. So basically 3.5 grams of sodium. 3.5 grams of sodium is not crazy. I mean, 3.5 grams, right? 3,500 milligrams. That's not crazy. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should be doing like, 8 and 10 grams and all of this, I don't know about all of that. If you're eating like a fruitarian diet, where your diet is like mostly fruit and whatnot, I mean, you ain't putting all type of, salt on the fruit. I I wouldn't advise that. Right. Can overeating carbs cause fat gain? I know you said not to worry about calories, but in this case, do they matter? Yeah, they matter to a degree, but the thing, so like, I wouldn't worry about eating too many carbs. The only time I would worry about eating too much carbs is if you're also eating a lot of fat. It's like if you're eating real high levels of carbs and fat, like you're just going buck nasty, just eating whatever straight across the board, yeah, you can start having problems. Excuse me. But it depends on food choice and your level of activity. Right. So the interesting thing is that when you eat more carbs, your calorie burn increases. You start fidgeting more. You start getting up and sitting down more. Right. Your behavior change. You start messing around doing. You start being like a little kid at church. You start doing stuff, right? That non-exercise activity, that non-exercise active thermogenesis, right? You get that neat burn starts going buck nasty, right? So your caloric burn increases more so. But as you become more insulin sensitive, you're gonna be more prone to like building muscle and all of that. The only time I would say that it's a problem where you're eating too much carbs is if you're just sedentary, like you just don't exercise, you don't walk nowhere, you don't do anything. In that case, yeah, it could be a bit too much, right? So yeah, there is like an upper threshold. Yeah, you could eat too much, but the thing is, if you're eating 412 grams of carbs, right? Let's put it into perspective. 412, like if you do 412, so 412 times 4. That's 1,648 calories. So if you're eating like in between 1,600 and 1,700 grams of carbs, that's not crazy. However, if you're eating like another, I don't know, 2,000 calories from fat, all right, well, yeah, now we would be really getting up there, right? And then you're throwing the protein on top of that. You're going buck nasty with the protein. All right, well, it's a different story. So you're doing like 412 grams of carbs, and then you're doing 150 grams of fat, and then you're doing 110 grams of protein. All right, well, yeah, that's a different story. So it depends on what the rest of your diet looks like, and it depends on your lifestyle, and it depends on the food choice. Oh, you said you're ready for your results to come back so I can start my 12 weeks. There we go. That's right. Keep me dialed in. I really appreciate all this knowledge you drop and gems of wisdom. I appreciate you tuning in. Absolutely. I'm just out here doing my part. Thanks for all the shared knowledge. How do you see going fully raw vegan, fruitarian versus going high raw? I like the high raw approach because it gives you more flexibility, right? So I like to eat sweet potato. I like to eat rice. I like to eat quinoa, right? Things like that. I like to eat black beans and things like that. Things that I would be eating cooked, right? However, like high raw is like, I eat raw all day. And then I may have like a cooked meal at night. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do. So like cooked food isn't a significant source of food for me. Right, like I could be eating like 2-3 cooked meals a week, right? And then even in the cooked meal, it may be like mostly raw, but one of the things are cooked. So I can have like a raw salad and then have a sweet potato, or I could have like a raw salad and then have like a cup of chickpeas, right? Or 12 or 9 ounces of chickpeas that are cooked or something like this. So it's not like a significant source of cooked food, right? I just don't. But I don't swear off anything that you have to cook. I don't do that, right? For me personally, that could be beneficial though to just do fully raw for some other people. It just depends on why you're doing it. I think you should have a good reason for doing it, right? Just because it's a good idea doesn't mean you don't have to have a good reason for doing it. You still should have a solid reason for anything that you do, right? So like, I don't really think that people should just be dogmatic, like just eat raw no matter what. Like, no, I mean, you have cycles. right? So, you know, you have to weigh in all the factors of your life and be more of a, have more of a balanced way of doing things, right? Let's do it. I'm gonna throw in this. Let's throw in this link here. Who want to come up? I'm gonna put this link in here. Boom. We got the call-in link up. All right, so it's right up in there. And let me see if I can pin it. So I'm gonna do this. Do these. Can I do this on my phone? There we go, yeah. All right, boom, and it's pinned. All right, folks, the link to call in is up. So you can jump in there. I think I did that right. And also, for those of you tuning in on Discord, let me go ahead and jump in the voice chat over there on the Discord. All right, so I'm in the voice chat in Discord. All right, my man John is up. Let me...
So, Coach,
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm all right. Let me show you this thing I'm working with. What you think? So you know how flax seeds has a lot of protein and good fats and all that. And I was like, okay, well let me start sprouting it. So I'm sprouting the flax seeds, and even wait. I'm gonna wait till one of them get to the microgreen stage.
Uh-huh.
And so by weight, this is a tablespoon. So technically, I should still get the same benefits whether it's the whole flax seed sprout or microgreen.
Yeah, you would get the same benefits. It would be easier on your gut,
For sure.
right? At least it should be, right? But yeah.
Yeah. So that's gonna be my new thing because I'm like, well, man, I can run these things through the either the juice or put them on my salad. It actually has like a peanut butter. Well, I won't say peanut butter. It has a peanut taste to it. Once it has its it makes it to its microgreen stage.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you got to show me how that looks. You got to send me some pictures to show me how that looks.
Yeah,
When it's up.
I'll send you some pictures. Yeah, they might do that. So,
There we go.
all right, that's all I wanted to show you, man.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. You gotta check in with me. See, you know, see what kind of progress you got going on. So if you need some extra feedback, some extra help, or something like that, you need a plan. Let me know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm on this. I'm trying to get on this, kind of like what you basically high raw a lot of fruits. I'm kind of bringing down my vegetable content and add more fruit because man, you're making a lot more sense because I was normally what I was doing was consuming more vegetables than I was fruit. And so I said, you know what, let me switch it around. And I consumed mainly fruits today and just a little bit of vegetables. And I can definitely tell the difference in the energy and even when I'm working out the soreness, it doesn't stay long.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Like leafy green vegetables is good up until a point, but you know, nutrition is a zero-sum game. So I mean, if you're going crazy pounding in the greens, I mean, just understand that's a lot of insoluble fiber. You're going to be binding up more of your micronutrients as a result. So you can get crazy with the leafy greens and actually mess around and eat yourself into a mineral deficit doing that. So, you know, I think like generally speaking, you probably shouldn't go more than like 8 ounces, generally speaking, per day. 8 ounces of greens is a lot. You know, I hear people like, for example, I've heard of Brooke Goldner, and she does like a pound of greens a day or something like that. Like that's the thing she advises. And I think that that could be very effective. It depends on what greens you use. So I think
Yeah.
like she advocates more of like a low glycemic, you know, high fiber. So it's like chia seeds and greens and things like that. I could be wrong. I don't know. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that.
So I
And
was
that
thinking
could
about that
be,
with the flax seeds and the chili seeds to
yeah, yeah.
sprite them or make them microgreens because there's so much benefits you get out of them.
Yeah. It could be beneficial and really effective. It depends on what the goal is and how long you're going to do it for.
Yeah. I was just trying to get the protein out of it, honestly.
Oh, you're just trying to get the protein.
Yeah, that's
It
it.
has a lot more to offer than protein, I tell you that.
It does. It does. It has a lot of the micronutrients. But then, 1 cup of flax seeds is like 30 grams of protein, I think.
Gotcha.
I
Yeah.
can knock that
Yeah.
back in a salad.
Or hold on one second. Somebody said trying to join the link. So you're trying to join. What's happening when you try to join? What's it say?
It, Same thing with me. It wasn't doing anything.
It wouldn't do anything.
Mm-mm.
Let me see. Maybe I got to set up a different thing. Let me see. Yeah, because somebody should be able to jump in. So I got to figure out. So I'm gonna have to figure out. Maybe I have to do a different thing for that. But you know what? Let me bring you up on StreamYard. I'm gonna put in the StreamYard link and see if that works. So let me go to. Where is it? Where is it? How do I get to the invites? Ah, there we go. Okay. So we got invite. All right. So I'm putting the invite into the comments. So that's the StreamYard invite. So you can throw that in there. See if that works. And I got to figure out what's going on with this other thing that I had previously. So I got to back up. All right, there we go. I got my man Vinny in here. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm all right, doing pretty well. So you didn't say 3,500 grams of salt. You didn't say that. It was milligrams,
No,
right?
it was milligrams.
Yeah, all right.
I don't think I'd still be here if it was grams.
That's what I'm saying. That throat be closed up.
Yeah, so I've been watching a bunch of your videos and I've actually had some great results already. I haven't been fully raw. I've tried, but it's tough for me. I have been tracking my macros extremely closely, so going high carb, so like 60, 30, 20, I think right now. So 60
Okay.
grams.
So 30 as in 30% fat?
Yeah, it's 25, something very close to that.
Gotcha, okay.
But yeah, I've lost a bunch of fat already, like extremely amount, and I feel like I'm putting on muscle mass in the process too. So it's it's doing really. I've been doing really great with it. I walk like 10 miles a day though, so that could contribute to, while also doing 16 to 8 intermittent fasting. That could contribute to that too, but I definitely think it's got to be the diet too. What do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so basically walking is like the ultimate fat loss exercise, right? But the thing about like going on the high carb diet is it's a great way to simultaneously drop body fat and build muscle at the same time.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
So
the
like
goal.
because the thing is that when you're carb sensitive, you're insulin sensitive, you eat carbs, it goes straight to the muscle mass. So it preserves the gains you're getting. It helps to increase the muscle mass you have while also dropping fat mass. Because as you become more insulin sensitive, your blood sugar drops faster. So when you
Mhm.
eat, especially like fruits, you get the short-term blood sugar spike, but it comes down like 45 minutes after. And so it returns pretty much to baseline, and you're in this fat burn zone as soon as your blood sugar drops below like 110.
Right. So, what do you think? What do you think about this? So, my routine right now is I wake up, I go right onto the treadmill. I walk probably 5 miles fasted, and then I'll break my fast with some sort of fruit. So usually like a banana or something. Um, and then if it's a workout day, then I will try to put like 100 grams of carbs in my body, then go work out a high intensity workout. Um, then I'll come home and try and get to about 430 grams of carbs and about 100 grams of protein, and try to stay at like 70 grams of fat. But I mean, it's been working for me crazy so far. I've probably dropped like 10 pounds of fat. Well,
How are
like,
you getting to the 100 grams of protein? What else are you putting in?
so I eat like chicken. So I'm not on the. I've tried to be on the high raw, like, or even the vegetarian wave, but like I've struggled with it. So
What do you think the biggest struggle is for that?
I think you have to eat so much more food on a vegetarian. Like you constantly have to be like eating, I think, in order to get like those 100 grams. But it depends on what you're eating, like, I guess. But for me personally, like it's tough. It's tough to get. I don't know.
Yeah, because I'm like, that's like a lot of chicken at the end.
It's really not. I mainly eat like, I think it's 110 grams of chicken, so it's like 3 slices, and then I'll throw
That's
it
not
on
100
rice.
grams of protein though.
No way. I get most of my protein probably from either the protein powder or mainly like rice.
Yeah, because I think it would probably be easier. So, like for example, I would do like I would do lentils over the chicken. And the reason why is because you get more folate, you get more magnesium and manganese. It makes for better sleep quality. Right. So I would rather do like a lentil soup as a result. So for example, if you do like a cup of lentils, that's like 40 grams of protein right there.
Yeah,
You
I
add
actually
in,
buy
like,
it right
let's
in
say-
the jar. I actually have,
Yeah.
have the vegetable one.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you do like a red lentil soup, and then you add in, your leafy green vegetables on top of that, some nutritional yeast, your seasonings and whatnot. And that's really good actually for your gut health. So like if you season it with things like garlic and basil and cumin, those are antifungal and antibacterial and antiviral. So they protect you from like any type of like bacterial overgrowth or fungal overgrowth or anything like that, and prevents like candida and things like this.
Yeah.
Right.
mean,
So if you're trying to get like 400 something grams of carbs, it's budget friendly, because now you don't have to like eat as much fruit, because the fruit, with the tariffs and all of that, you get a little bit of a price increase there.
That's
So if you do more of like the lentils and things like that, you can kind of be a little bit more budget friendly and still be able to have the same macros. And so you can condense your plan a little bit more, and it's easier to prep around that.
Yeah, there's the thing I would say is, like, chicken wise, like when I do eat chicken, like I feel my body, like I can feel it like take me down, like as in like my energy, you know what I mean? So like when I eat fruit, I'm like ready to go, like I'm wired. Like when I'm and then the first time I eat like a meat or like a meat product, I like just feel like my energy level, like I feel it in my body. It just feels not great, but it's just
Yeah,
tough.
hit that stomach like a brick.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I mean, I've made pretty solid progress though. Going with the kind of the teachings that you've had so far.
There you go. Well,
The high
I'm glad
carb.
it's working out for you so far.
But I'm a little worried though that I am losing muscle mass a little bit. Like I don't know if it's like I don't know. Like I'll read you my macros that I do. Would you like to
Well,
hear that?
well, hold on. First of all, if you feel like you're losing muscle mass, are you getting weaker in your training performance?
No. I just like when I like look in the mirror, I'm like, man, like I'm getting like I look a little bit skinnier.
So,
but-
are your circumference measurements like? So, for example, is your shoulders or chest measurements decreasing?
I don't. Only thing I measure is like my stomach, like my actual like belly to see if it's like shrinking, and I've dropped like that's decreasing, but not like
Gotcha.
my,
Yeah. So that's the thing. So the only way you could really say the first sign of muscle loss is strength loss. Like if your training performance is declining over a period of like multiple weeks, that's usually a sign that you need to back off a little bit. Right? But if you're not experiencing that, like if you're just looking in the mirror and being like, oh, I look smaller. Well, if you dropped a ton of body fat and you're walking 10 miles a day, then yeah, you're doing like this accelerated fat loss thing going on. So your body will shrink overall. So like one of these things is that, and every like bodybuilder goes through this. When you drop a ton of body fat, that shrinking process, when it happens real quick, it does make you a little nervous.
yeah.
Right. So, but it's not like muscle loss. Like you really just have to stick to it and ride it out until you get to your ideal body fat percentage. Like, don't get freaked out, and then you lose that game of chicken, and you go back in the opposite direction, and you start gaining back body fat because you got derailed from the paranoia. So you really got to commit to getting that goal of that specific body fat percentage or like that waist circumference, and you just take it all the way to the last stop. Don't deviate.
That's the hardest part is when you look in the
Yeah.
mirror and you're like, man, I've lost all this fat, but like, did I just lose all of this muscle that I've kind of been working on for a long time? So I did face that adversity, but I stayed course.
What is your height and weight?
So I am 5'7.5". I got to put the half in there. I am I started like a month. I think it's 2 months now. I started the journey 2 months ago. I was like probably 30% body fat. Started watching all your videos. I really took notes. Then to finish answering your question, I started at 168. I'm now 160. So I'm 5'7.5", 160 right now. Started at 168. But I've kind of like held weight, but like the fat has decreased, but like I think I am building. But when I look in the mirror sometimes I'm like, oh, like
I mean, you should be, dude. At 5'7", 160 pounds is pretty heavy at that weight.
you think so?
Yes. And if you're coming from 30% body fat, dude, you're on the journey to like at least 10% body fat.
I think
And I would cut to like 8% to get, and then build from there. Because if you can drop to 10%, but when you start like building again, you can easily pop back up to 12. So if you get to 8, you can pop back up to 10 and maintain it.
it seems way harder now to like shave off the fat as it did in the beginning. So like I feel like it's definitely moving the fat, like on my stomach at least. Like I shredded a lot of it, but like the lower abdomen is is kind of not budging. But yeah, I think after you drop a lot, like I didn't drop a lot, but I think it is tougher now that I am at like I think I'm at 15%. I'm not sure.
Yes,
Like,
well, I mean, if you're at 15%, I mean, look, you know, I think that, yeah, I mean, look, 5'7", 160 pounds is pretty heavy. Right? Like you and I like the same weight.
really,
I'm
you
5'9".
look way bigger than me, man. I'll be honest.
Well, so for me, I have I have a 29-inch waist.
Yeah, I have a 30 waist. Well, like
Yeah.
my pants are. I have like a 30. I wear a 30.
So my shoulders are 50 across.
I don't know my shoulders.
Yeah.
You're,
So that's
you're
what I'm
like
saying, your
arms though.
circumference
Like your
measure.
arms are much like you're more filled out.
Yeah,
What,
yeah.
how, what,
But I
how,
mean, look,
what's your height? How tall are you?
I'm 5'9".
Yeah, that's crazy. That's huh.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, you got some more to go. That's a pretty heavy weight for 160 at 5'7" is you're a big boy at that weight. So I'm
Really?
saying, like, you know, when you drop to, because the thing is that the more body fat you have on you, the harder it actually is to build muscle mass because of that myostatin thing. So like the body fat basically so you get like the more body fat you have, the more aromatase your body produces. So aromatase basically converts testosterone into estrogen. Right? So when the higher your body fat percentage is, the more aromatase your body produces, and the more testosterone you bleed and convert into estrogen.
That's
Right? So it becomes, so then you get thrown into this weird thing where you're like, oh, I want to cut the body fat, but then I also want to retain the muscle mass, and I want to build the muscle mass. And it's like, yeah, but the thing is that
Yeah.
you're losing the testosterone and the muscle capability to the body fat because of the aromatase. So the number one goal is to really lean out, get to your ideal body fat percentage, and then build from there uninhibited. Like, don't try to build and get jacked and then have all of this body fat to cut. Because the thing is that when your body fat is already high and you gain muscle mass, you're also going to gain a lot of body fat with it. So there's always going to be this perpetual need to cut because you can't build the muscle mass without increasing your body fat percentage significantly. So that's why I say stick to the journey. Don't worry about it. I mean, if you want to lean out, you got to lean out. My top weight is 193 pounds. So
where
I
are
had
you
to
right
cut.
now, if you don't mind me asking? I think you may have already.
Yeah,
said.
I'm at 160.
Okay.
So like 160, 162, somewhere around there, right? But basically, I had my top weight was like 193 at 5'9". I couldn't fit into clothes, but my body fat percentage was like 16. It was up there.
Yeah, not that you were
And I
fat. It's
cut-
just like your proportion, like your shoulders. Like I struggle
Yeah.
wearing clothes because my shoulders are wider, so like everything fits weird. So like.
Oh yeah, especially when you're not like when you have 5'7", you're just wide, right? You built like a fridge,
Yeah.
right? So like you'll see like short, like you know who Kai Green is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kai Green is like 5'6" or something like this. He's a short dude,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he's wide,
he looks
so it
wide,
makes him
yeah.
look huge. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
especially
seen him in
like
person.
on camera and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks stretched out. Yeah, like you took an image and just just stretched it out. It looks crazy, right?
Exactly.
He built like a speed bump. Dude is huge.
Exactly.
But so yeah, I mean there is a benefit. Like you know when you're shorter, you can get like these big thick forearms and calves and stuff because the bone is shorter and the muscle's longer, right? You'll have guys who are tall and they don't look big because the bone is long and then the origins and insertions are short. So where the muscle attaches to the bone, the muscle belly isn't long, so it can't get as wide. So you'll see guys who are real tall and they forever look like they have chicken legs. So they can squat all this crazy heavy weight and their legs look real skinny because of where the muscle attaches on the bone. When you're shorter, you don't have that problem. You have longer muscle bellies when you're shorter.
So within like physique, that what you're talking about right now is like an important aspect of it is the way like my bicep like is kind of like a little bit higher. Like I know that there's things like that, like the way it connects to your
Yeah.
Your ligaments,
The muscle
right?
belly itself, yeah, where it attaches on the bone. But understand with a bicep though, like if you supinate your grip, the bicep will shorten because of how it works. So if you pronate your grip, it's going to be longer. If you shorten, it's because it contracts and it contracts and shortens. So with the biceps, it's a little bit different. It's the same thing with your hamstring. If you bend the knee, the hamstring pulls up higher.
right.
Right. So that's a bit different. But I'm just talking about where the muscle attaches to the bone in a relaxed state.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's definitely huge. I had one more question for you, which was like starting off in the journey. Like I always thought like, oh, I can build muscle and lose fat at the same time. So kind of what you're saying is shred as much fat as you can and then worry about the muscle building.
Yeah. I think that in the cutting phase, when you're trying to get lean, it's a really good idea to gain strength. If that's a good opportunity to build like a good strength foundation. So you can get like a really like a big deadlift, a big back squat, overhead press, like you get some real strength. Farmers carries and all that. Huh?
While cutting?
While cutting, yes. So if you just focus on like building strength and explosiveness, like power, while cutting, you can lean out and gain strength simultaneously. And then when you get to your ideal body fat percentage, you can really pick up your food intake and then focus more so on hypertrophy and really fill out. So when you have that really good strength foundation, your work capacity is going to be much higher. So you're going to be more prone to hypertrophy because your nervous system is so conditioned that when you switch to hypertrophy training, the skeletal muscle is going to play catch up with the rest of your nervous system.
Really?
Yeah. So you'll see like a lot of powerlifting athletes, they'll switch over to bodybuilding because they have this higher capacity to build muscle because of all the nervous system work they did. So they have like this crazy fast twitch muscle fibers and their nervous system is crazy. So they can move big weight. So they can create a bigger training stimulus to put on the muscle mass. All right, so you do have like a really good opportunity right now to do that.
Yeah, that's the goal right now. I mean, I obviously am like everyone else, you know, I want to be able to have abs and build muscle at the same time, but while simultaneously working on both. Like get bigger arms while achieving abs in the same way. But I mean, it's tough to do, and it's not really ideal, is what it sounds like.
Absolutely. All right, brother. Well, appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah.
It's time to get to bed. It's 9 o'clock over here. So, yeah, but definitely I'll be on next Monday. Keep tuning in. You know, I'm always bringing new information and whatnot. All right, brother?
I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. Talk to you.
See you.
All right, y'all. That's what I'm talking about. Use the information. I put out a lot of good stuff here. It works. This is all stuff I do. But, all right. We got anybody else stepping up? Are we good? Everybody ready to go to sleep? We got Mama Do in the building. What's going on, Mama Do? Absolutely. All right, y'all. I ain't gonna hold y'all up too much longer. Appreciate everybody tuning in to the Monday Night Call-In / Monday Night Raw. And I'll catch y'all on the next one. Y'all take care.